That's what America wants. Nice and calm. You almost there.
Yeah, I did it. I cried 2 tears in a bucket. Fuck it. Let's take it to the stage.
You dig it? You knock a dude down, you get some respect.
Hey, yeah. And listen, my picture's not up there. I mean, I didn't come up on purpose. I gotta look at this little avatar, man. Look how cool I look and shit. That's nice. I'm telling you, that's really cool. I gotta show this to my wife. You know. But anyway, I'm right here. I know you can hear me. So I just have to admire the tools that are out there. I mean, look at me. I'm looking all buff and look like a football player. Shit, I'm got a little coach, my man, the coach Adams vibes, the whole 9 yards going on. Shit, ain't nothing better than the baby boom, man. You better believe it. Anyway, so hello, happy New Year, everybody. Yeah, maybe I should talk with just my avatar up there. Man, shit, that was cool. Anyway, look, happy New Year. Aren't you entertained? I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. The United States is energized, man. We've energized the whole damn world, man. This is fantastic. It's a great time to be an American. You know, I know a lot of you people don't like to say that. Well, maybe there are a lot. 77 million people said that they wanted change, and they got it. It's fantastic out there. But it's a new year. The last year, we could do some reflection and we could do some projection now that this start of the year. It was a good day on the stock market, I could tell you that. But we have good and bad days, so I wouldn't chalk up anything more to it than that, except the Dow hit another 52-week high today. I think the NASDAQ, the S&P was close, and the NASDAQ is still got another percentage point to go. So hey, and so we're going to get into some of the good and the bad of what went on last year and what we could project in this year coming up. And one of the things that I wanted to start with is, and I think we have a big problem with this in America, separating the personal feelings for the guy in leadership from the actual policies that's being enacted. I find that a lot of people have trouble with that, maybe on both sides, but mostly on the liberal side, since they hate Trump so much that it's not even worth having a conversation, because even some of the things that are good, they want to find reasons to say it's bad, and they're being dishonest because intellectually they know better than that, and it's kind of frustrating. And then, it's funny, the saying, they used to have a saying, you didn't have to be Jewish to like rye bread. That was true back when they said it, when I was young, real young. And it's true today. You don't have to like Trump to enjoy the policies and the direction that the country is going in. You don't have to be MAGA. I think there's a great deal of people who voted for him who weren't MAGA. I'm not a MAGA. And I'm not even so sure there's anything really wrong with that, other than it's a stupid name that to stigmatize people any way you want to. But I think if people could separate their personal feelings from the way the country was going and is going, then I think we had better discourse between the left and the right. And the ideologies might have some common ground somewhere, and I don't think we're actually looking for it at all. I think most people just want to keep fighting, and I think it's really stupid. And and I think it's been as bad as it's ever been. And we're gonna touch upon some of that when we get into it. So we're gonna talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I'm gonna start with the bad and the ugly uh, because there's a lot of good. But I want to make sure that anybody who listens to this understands that I have some issues with what's going on, even though I am pro administration and I like the direction of the country. And I have the list of things why I like what we're doing now, as opposed to those ratchet assholes running the government when Biden, who I think is more racist than Trump ever was in charge. And so I'm so glad that we didn't put Tim Walz. How did that age? How did that whole Tim Walz as vice president age? Now that we know that he was asleep at the switch, if not at the switch, if not at the switch, buddy, up in Minnesota. You know what I'm saying? So I just think that we're going to go through some of it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the Somalis. Everybody hit that shit really good. We found out that Tim is not going to run for re-election, and thank goodness for the people of Minnesota, because they've lost their way with the leaders that they put in place, and I feel sorry for them. I used to go to Minnesota a lot when I worked for the Department of Defense. Some of you people might remember Honeywell and some other companies that were up in Minnesota. I swear that place was cold, man. I think Somalis kicked ass out there because they're mad because it was so cold up there. Oh my God. You used to have to, keep your car running. Sometimes it was so cold out there. But I used to love going up there. Matter of fact, I used to go up there before they built the Mall of America. And then when it was built, and the people were always nice. I got to say that for a place where you would think that we'd have a lot of racial tension and all that kind of stuff, the people up in that area were really nice. I had no problems moving around in Minnesota, Minneapolis, and all that kind of stuff. So it's a nice place. It was a nice place. I didn't know the people were so gullible. I didn't know they were so gullible. And you know what? But there's a lot of us Americans who are gullible. So so I just wanted to get that straight. Again, as we go through this, try to separate some of you out there who might have TDS, which should probably go into the medical journal as a real illness, Trump derangement syndrome, and try to separate the hatred for the man from the direction that the country's going. And you still might not agree, but at least there could be a conversation on one side or the other without automatically jumping to personal attacks and this and that and other thing. I voted for Hillary Clinton, believe it or not. That wasn't so long ago. And I couldn't stand her. And believe it or not, I voted for her because I drank some of the Kool-Aid that Trump was a bad guy. And I wasn't separating his character from some of the things he had. But let me tell you, he's a much better president now than he was at 45. He learned something. He actually learned something. At his age, he learned something. And let me also say this before we move on. And I'm older, I'm 67. But all of you young folks, any of you guys who are 40 and you're 50 and younger, if you're listening to this, don't ever vote for another man who's over 75 as president. I don't care who he is. I don't care what side of the aisle, like a Bernie Sanders should never be able to be president. I think the presidency should be for guys in their, mid 50s and early 60s at the earliest, maybe even younger if they're astute. But forget about the old people putting them in there. It's time for a changing of the guard. And that's why you guys have to get on your P's and Q's, because the Gen Xers and the older millennials will be the people taking over. And if you sit back and say, I can't stand Gen Xers, or if you sit back and say, man, Gen Xers are the ultimate victims, and because they can't stand baby boomers or whatever, and the millennials are the perennial people who've been pampered, well, those are going to be your new leaders. They're going to be the new leaders, you know? So how does that look? How does that look? You know what I'm saying? These are the people who are going to take over, right? So that's just something to think about. Now, of course, we had the big news about Venezuela, and I wanted to claim that, and I can't. I know the planning was done last year, late last year, but the execution was this year. So I was saying to myself, can I take that credit as a good thing for the shit that happened last year, right? Because that's what they're supposed to be, right? A reflection of what happened last year. So I'm in between, but I just want to get the Venezuela thing out the way. So I got a little icebreaker clip. It's real short about Venezuela. And the thing that I want you to take away from this is this, that Trump didn't invent Maduro as our enemy. He's been around long before Trump even became the 45. So we're going to show what President Barack Obama thinks about Maduro and what he thought we should do with him. And that's the biggest issue. We had all these people selling wolf tickets about this dude in Venezuela. And now that Trump did something about it, the whole left is in an uproar that he actually acted upon what we said we needed to do. So anyhow, before we go further, let me go ahead and hit this clip with President Barack Obama. And you guys listen up and you tell me what you think about it.
President Barack Obama declared Venezuela a national security threat and signed an executive order approving new sanctions against the country. In a fiery 2-hour speech, Maduro called it proof that Washington wants to topple his government.
President Obama will be remembered in the future for this decision and his aggression against the Venezuelan people, the noble people, because the people of Venezuela are a peaceful people. President Obama, you don't have the right to attack, nor to declare that Venezuela is a threat to the people of the United States. You are the threat to the people of the United States.
Obama's executive order targets 7 Venezuelan government officials for alleged human rights abuses relating to the crackdown of anti-government protests last year and the recent arrest of high-profile opposition.
As a Venezuelan American, I got some shit to say.
All right, so I just wanted to show that this wasn't Trump's invention. He didn't identify Maduro as our enemy. It's happened long before him or before him, right? He put the first bounty on the guy's head. Then Biden made it 25 million, and now it's 50 million, and he's doing something about it. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So you guys tell me whether going in there with this brilliant strategic strike to get indicted felon out of our hemisphere who was making deals with our enemies and who's sitting on the biggest oil reserve in the world. Do we want the Chinese and the Russians or the Iranians to have any kind of inside track on that oil? Or do we want to have a favorable government to the United States in our southern hemisphere with that reserves? I mean, you be the only judge of that. So here's a guy who's been, his family has been exiled. So let's hear what he said.
My family, my parents, my sister, my extended family, all lost everything. Their work, their savings, their investments, gone. Wiped out by a narco dictatorship that has held Venezuela in a death grip for over 25 years. And what happened to my family has happened to millions, and yes, millions. The Venezuelan exodus is the second largest displacement crisis on earth after Syria. This is not just a tragedy. It is one of the great humanitarian disasters of our time. But the suffering doesn't end there. This regime has jailed hundreds of political prisoners. Thousands have been murdered simply for speaking out. More than a third of the population has fled. 1/3. Not for better opportunities or for the American dream, but to survive.
These are Venezuelans all around the world. By the way, the first two clips, courtesy of the Angry Man.
Estoy feliz, como todos los venezolanos. Salimos de algo que nos tenía locos, huyendo del país. Ahora vamos a volver a la casa, unidos con la familia.
Cuando uno está fuera de su país, cuando uno ha tenido que salir del país por ser perseguido político, por haber sido secuestrado, que ahora uno vea que en verdad todos esos verdugos están cayendo uno sobre otro. Eso es lo que uno dice que, wow, mi corazón llora de alegría.
And 20 years ago now, and I wanted to get their perspective on that massive news that took place yesterday, and I wanted to hear what they thought about the fact that Maduro was now gone. And on top of that, I went to Brooklyn and I spoke with folks at a cafe/restaurant that is owned by a native Venezuelan, and the fact that not only was Maduro removed, but that he is now neighbors with them in Brooklyn. And I talked to them about just their overall thoughts.
Claro que sí, papá. Felicidades. Felicidades. We are just rejoicing today. It's just an incredible, fantastic, fabulous day.
That's a big surprise. Something that we were waiting for a long time.
It's amazing. We've been waiting for this day for decades. We're so thrilled and happy.
And so you have the politics and the legality that you've been covering very well on this story since yesterday, since you and I got on the air. You've been doing a great job steering the ship and trying to explain to people the political consequences, Hannah. But when you remove the politics and you talk to the people who are most affected by this, those who grew up in Venezuela, those who lived there, those who fled because of the situation there. I spoke with many who left because of who was in power there. And I also asked them if they would ever go back now that he is removed. A lot of them said yes, but with a little bit of hesitancy. They want to see how this plays out, Hannah.
Yeah.
All right. So there you go. There you have it. You know, I mean, one of the things I take from this whole thing with Venezuela, and it's a funny thing. I grew up in Spanish home when I was young, and I saw the transition. I went to school with a lot of Hispanics, mostly Puerto Ricans since I was in New York. But, I mean, I guess it's romantic the way their language I guess binds them together, even though the last thing people need to think is that Hispanic Latin people are monolithic. They all, depending on where you're from, they all have their own issues, and even though their language binds them, they all have their own histories. And, so here's a Venezuelan who could communicate their pain to Spanish people all around the world and to other people in a native language. It might not be Castilian Spanish, but it's amazing. It's hard not to get romanticized by the Latin folks, and their culture. It's something different. Anyway, so I just wanted to say that. So we're going to go into the rest of this thing, the Trump administration, the retrospect, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Should I claim the Venezuelan getting rid of the dude? There's a lot more work to do. So it's not time to, pat anybody on the back. A lot of the bad elements are still in power in Venezuela. But just think about this. If you strip away all the other bullshit that you're going to hear, whether from me or from the news media, would you rather the Chinese be in charge and have inroads into that oil reserve, or the Russians or the Iranians or anybody else? Or is it better for us as Americans to have a friendly ally in South America with those oil reserves? A lot of people don't realize that it was American oil companies that built the infrastructure of all the oil refineries in Venezuela, and then the communists nationalized it. So you can go look that up. And these people lost billions and billions of dollars when they nationalized the oil, and the production went to shit after that. And they stole the money, and the inflation started to kill the population. So think about what the communists have done to Venezuela, and think Madani in New York City, and the poison that's starting to fester in our own backyard. Anyway, so that's just something for you guys to think about. So what's the ugly thing? I kind of combined what I thought was ugly and bad about this administration. So let's get started. And it might not be in any particular order. This is my order that I put down on my script, right? You guys might have your own order in your head. You might think the whole administration was bad just because he got voted in, and you want to just go piss on all 77 million people who thought that a regime change in America based on the way we vote was a good thing or a bad thing. Well, that's up to you. One of the very first things I thought was really bad is the handling of the Epstein files. I think it's just idiotic. I think out of all the campaign promises that he made, I just think he threw this one in there and thought people would forget about it. From the very first time when I say Epstein was eliminated, nobody buys. Nobody buys that he committed suicide. Nobody buys it. It's if you think about Occam's razor, about what's the most obvious is the most true. There's no way that any rational person thinks that this guy actually offed himself in a prison where he was supposed to be under 24-hour guard. No, it's just an unbelievable lie. And the news media is in on it, and everybody who's in on it, or they just parroting whoever told them to parrot it. I never believed it, and I still don't believe it. Whether he's a spy for this guy, that guy, that's immaterial. And then Ghislaine Maxwell, right? She goes to jail. And there's and so now we want to release, I guess, millions of documents so we could ferret out the names of who might have been on the island. Isn't that, that shit is stupid to me. Does it matter if they were on the island, or does it matter whether they committed a crime? Right? Because just being on the island, even with a nasty, barbarous guy like Epstein, it's not a crime in and itself. So we really want to know who actually took part in the pedophilia, who took part in the trafficking of the young ladies and the young men, who did it, right? And so why do we have to ferret through 1 million documents to just assume who might have did it? This shit sounds crazy to me. And maybe some of you guys are like, oh, I shouldn't say some of you. As far as I'm concerned, I don't understand this, and nobody has been able to really, really explain it to me. They have a certain amount of survivors who were young, right? Who were really young at one time, right? They're all adults now. Don't they know by name already who molested them? I can't get an answer to that. Right? They have a lady going around doing the circuit and shit and just being kind of vague. Don't they know? If it wasn't just Epstein, and if it wasn't just Ghislaine Maxwell who was recruiting and peddling them, but there were actually other physical people who were taking turns and doing their dastardly, demonic things to these young people, they all have names. These people survived maybe the worst thing that might have happened to them, and they know the names of the people who did it, right? How come they just don't tell it? How come they just don't mention the names? You know what I'm saying? I'm just thinking, how come they just don't mention the names? Can somebody tell me that? What's that? Gobis 3SY? Anyway, I'm just saying, am I really off base by saying if you are a victim, let's just go forget this highfalutin, Epstein for a second. In a regular assault case, right? In a regular assault case, if a woman or a man for that matter gets, essayed, they would go to, if they get over the cobwebs, they actually go to the police. If they don't know the assailant, that's one thing. But if they do know the assailant, they would mention the assailant's name. The police would do an investigation. And if they get enough evidence, whatever, they'll go to the DA who says, hey, listen, we can make a case out of the evidence you brought me. And then they convene a grand jury, right? And then the grand jury says, yeah, there's enough here to indict this asshole, right? So in this case, with these grown adults, how come they just don't give the names to the authorities for the authorities to investigate and then say, oh, yeah, there's enough here to say this person in this high position should be brought up on charges? Now, if the contention is they already did that and the authorities did nothing, isn't that a whole different problem? Is that what they're trying to ferret out of these documents? Right? So if that's the case, the same victims could have said, yeah, I went to the LAPD or I went to the New York PD or I went to wherever these infractions were, and they did nothing. They did nothing. They nobody was put under investigation. The only people they put under investigation was Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. We know that's not true, right? That can't be true. So that means somebody's hiding the names or other names that might have gone to a grand jury. Now, here's where the kicker is. I don't know. I'm just spitballing because I got to put my hands around it. It's all out there. If they went to the grand jury and the DA says, shit, the grand jury didn't want to indict, right? They can't indict because we think something happened, but we can't prove it. We can't win in a court. So the question is, should that person's name be put out in the diaspora if the grand jury can't indict? You guys tell me, if you were indicted by the grand jury and nobody knew, and you were exonerated or they couldn't find enough evidence to, indict you, right? How would you feel if your name was put out there that you was under indictment like that? Especially in a case like this, what would happen? What would happen to the person if there was no credible evidence, but their name was put out that they were under investigation? What would happen? And so, all right, so here, let's forward this notion on why this was one of the stupidest things ever about releasing these files. And here's another thing that should piss everybody off. They actually made this shit into a law. They actually went through the House and voted on releasing the files, took it to the Senate, voted on releasing the files. The president signed it, probably reluctantly, because, well, President, you brought the shit up, right? And now you put it on Pam Bondi to be the one who adjudicates what gets redacted and what doesn't get redacted, right? That's kind of how this shit is going, right? Release all the files, all millions of them, right? And release them by this date. But the truth of the matter is somebody's got to read this shit. Now, if Pam was smart, she would have a list that says, here's how we determine what should get redacted and what shouldn't get redacted. And we're going to apply this list to this millions of sets of documents. This way it's consistent across the board, right? Well, okay, so we'll get to this, right? So, because just being on the files doesn't mean shit. It's whether you were a participant in the actual infractions. So here's let me finish this thing, and then we'll get to the question. Pam Bondi is the adjudicator of what gets redacted or what doesn't get redacted, She is, right? That's why they're actually trying to throw her in jail because they don't think she's doing what they want her to do. So we're both human beings, GOB and everybody else who's listening out there. And I appreciate it. Hit the like button on the way in. If I give you a document, right? Or it doesn't have to be a big document, but any document on issue X from the Epstein files, okay? And I give you that document as part of this freedom of information law that's out there, and you review the document, and 25% of it is redacted. Okay? 25% of it is redacted. You're reading it, and every page has some redactions on it. Okay? Tell me this. Do you give a shit about what you could read, or is your mind focused on what's under the redaction? I mean, really, honestly, if any human being with common sense, you could think about it, how the population, if you have any kind, I mean, I'm not a big psychologist or anything like that. All I know is if you gave me a document that 25% of it is redacted, the only fucking thing I want to see is what's under the black ink. That's it. So they give Pam Bondi Kobayashi Maru, and anybody from Star Trek understands it's a no-win situation. It's a no-win situation because she has to redact something because there's some stuff in there that's redactable. Now, the issue is who gets to choose? Well, she does. And if you hate her, then all her redactions are nefarious. If you like her, then you'll take her for her word on it. But the truth about it is human nature and 100 million people, she's going to come out on the bottom of that. Because only thing people want to see is what's under the goddamn black ink. Right? And so even with the law that got passed, they agreed that some things could be redacted. So it was a stupid law to begin with. It was an absolute stupid law. We want to protect the victims. The fucking victims are doing victory laps around the country talking about how much of a victims they are. Their names are already out there. And none of them will say, who touched you? We don't need the files. If I'm still alive and I was victimized by a rapist, and I know who he is or who she is, I'm going to say the goddamn name. I don't need a file for that. Who? We got all these survivors. Tell us who touched you. Just tell us. That's what I'm saying. So this whole shebango with the Epstein files, it's just stupid. And he's got to take a hit for that. He's got to take a hit for that. The Democrats didn't go through all this shit. They had the files too. And don't tell me they were all under a bundle because of Ghislaine Maxwell. We couldn't see the files because Ghislaine? All right, so there's different levels of security clearances. Yeah, okay, you don't have to have a security. Let me tell you, if you're a victim, you don't need a security clearance. You know who touched you. Just tell us the names. I could tell you could read that file. People say, oh, Trump's name is in it. Clinton's name is in it. All these people's name. Okay, what does that mean? What does that really mean that their names were in it? It's just silly. It's silly. It's got to be, hey, Clinton was here and girl X was here. They even tried to do something with Trump, who was who owned the beauty pageant. And he took a picture with all the women who were in the beauty pageant. They blurred out their names to act like they were underage, which was bullshit. It was one of a public photo with women who were competing for Miss America. And then they try to pawn that off as some kind of, this is just, we're just playing games with the American people. And I think, Trump should have never mentioned this shit, nobody got on Biden's case for this, Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's not about. So okay. So he worked. Let's just say we go with the conspiracy theory. So he worked without government, not worked without government. Maybe he had shit over certain people in the government. They say he worked for the Mossad, the whole 9 yards. So now it's not about the victims anymore. It's really about ferreting out whether this guy was a spy. If that's the case, then then let's stop bullshitting that this is about the victims. You know what I'm saying? And if the powers that be, put the kibosh on Epstein while he was alive, so he would never stand trial, do you think they're gonna let this information out? So I think Pam Bondi is going to be able to say, listen, in the law, you said I have the right to redact stuff that I think is, not probative and will hurt some people, innocent people. And so that's what I did. And then you got all Ro Connor and these guys talking about we're going to get the sergeant of arms to arrest her and she's in violation. She's not in violation of the law. You just don't like what she redacted. Anyway, so that's my first one. So that everything ain't pristine with my man, okay, with Trump. That was a big one. I'm gonna move on from that. All right. And I don't know, Gobus, I don't know if you wanted to come up or whatever and talk about some of this, but the link is up there. But here's the other one. The next one is the deportation narrative. This was stupid from the beginning. The way they came out and talked about this, believe me, this is separate from closing the borders. That was a slam dunk home run. Okay. I'm talking about the deportation narrative that the Republicans and Trump put out into the diaspora about we're only going to get the worst of the worst, blah, 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 but they should have came out with the statute, period. They should have said, here's the law. Here's the law. The law, Section 8 of the code, 1325 and 1326. First time you come in this country illegally, it's a misdemeanor, but it's still a crime. Misdemeanors are crimes. Misdemeanors are crimes. One, if I kick your ass out and we catch you again, now it's a felony. Both are subject to deportation. Both of them. And not saying that as part of the narrative of what they were going to do when they embarked on this journey of cleansing our country from illegals is a mistake. Because if you say you're only going after the worst of the worst, then your enemies, the news media, the lefties, all these people could say, well, this person's not the worst of the worst. How come we can't give them a break? They didn't break any laws. They're working. No, I don't give a shit whether you're working. You're out of compliance. There's no statute of limitations on being here illegally. And I understand the heartstrings and all that shit. You fall in love, they have kids, they have this, and then the birthright citizenship is coming up too. Hold on. So the real issue is they try to sell a narrative that they're only going after the killers and the rapists and these guys. But in truth, they're going after anybody who's out of compliance. They're just not prioritizing everybody out of compliance. If you're out of compliance because you overstayed a visa, that's not a crime. But it's a civil offense. So you might not go to jail, but you're still subject to deportation. Just being out of compliance, period, with being an American citizen means you might get your day in court, you may or may not, but you are subject to deportation. Point blank, period. Right? If you're not a card-holding, nationalized American citizen or with an active visa. And every other country knows how to do that better than we do for some reason, because we got a whole bunch of bleeding heart liberals thinking that once you get here, you made it to the promised land, and the rest of us need to take care of you until you get on your feet. No, no, man, no. The answer to that is no. I mean, listen, if we're going to do immigration, a lot of those people have to have something to offer the country. And first thing is allegiance and assimilation. And if you're not doing that, then what good are you? Because first of all, you get 1 million people in, like the Biden administration had millions and millions of people come in. Those people are going to get sick. They need to eat. They need to have a place to live. They drive up the housing prices, all of that kind of stuff. And all of that shit is subsidized by American taxpayers' dollars. They didn't bleed not one drop for this country, but they're getting a free meal because they didn't want to stay in their own country to fix it up. Anyway, so that leads us to Abrego Garcia, right? A lot of people don't realize this. He's in the country illegally. In 2011, he came here illegally. But instead of just trying to get rid of him under the fact that he's illegal, they try to do this narrative. He's Tren de l'Agra, he's this and that. It's just bullshit, man. So now it brings it to another. And to top that off, they put him in the prison in El Salvador, that jail. Okay? Not understanding that when they went down there with the skinny girl, Christy Noam, right? And you show all those emasculated men in cages, and you broadcast that to 200 million Americans, more than half of which are bleeding heart liberals. What did you think was going to happen? It was a goddamn horror show in real life. It was another one of those stupid mistakes of machismo that these guys are doing to show, it's kind of like, some of y'all, might remember when the American forces killed Saddam Hussein's sons, Uday and Bouday, whatever the hell their name was. They made a movie out of this shit. All right. Okay. They were bad guys. But when Bush had them portrayed against a cross in like a death march in front of the world media, the optics was absolutely horrendous. It was like we were ghouls. They were bad guys, but to do that was really, really stupid. So showing that prison was really, really stupid. It was dumb. And you know why they don't do it no more? Because it was dumb. It was really stupid. I mean, I could take it. Some of these guys deserve all that shit. But you show that you see how all the people are bleeding over illegals now? When they saw that, they don't care if people are illegal. Say nobody should be, I don't care what they did. Nobody should endure that kind of torture. You can't show people that. That's why they don't show people hangings. Oh my God. So it's, so it's not like, I'm going to come up here and kind of beat the drum for everything that this guy has done. I'm not. There was some dumb shit, man. And here's a couple of things the president has to get better at. He could get goaded into some of the most stupid arguments. And that's really dumb. I mean, especially at your level, right? When people want you to be presidential, you're down at the lowest level, and playing the dozens with assholes, pretty much. Right? He says, some of the reporters deserve what they get, but you don't have to always give it to them. The Rob Reiner thing, right? When he died, okay, a lot of people don't realize Rob Reiner was an absolute monster asshole to President Trump. In word, in deed, and everything else. But as the president, did he need to actually write that post the way he did it right on the heels of the guy's death? No, he didn't. He could have took the high road, and sometimes you got to take the high road even when you don't want to. Mr. President says because it's distracting. It's absolutely distracting. And, this is one of the bad traits that he has. So some people could take it, some people can't. So I got a couple more, and then we're going to get into what I think is pretty good, right? Okay, the corruption, Doge, the Doge deal, right? And now with the Somali deal and the corruption that was actually going on, that they actually uncovered, where's the perp walks? Where are the people who should be going to jail? That's what I'm saying. Even when the economy collapsed under Obama or anything, nobody goes to jail. We're the perpetrators of this fraud. How come nobody's going to jail? If you could find out a money trail where there's fraud, it has to lead to somewhere and somebody or some organization. How come nobody's going to jail for the bullshit they did with USAID? How come nobody's going to jail? Oh man, listen, anyway, so that's another one. Okay, this fight with Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's just dumb. Now she's acting like a petulant child over some stuff because she didn't get what she wanted, but you don't have to engage in a back and forth with a chick, because in the end, it's a man having an argument with a chick in public. Then and it's these things don't end well. And she's been a real big supporter, MAGA supporter. I believe in some of the stuff she said in terms of America first. And you can't keep saying that when you're doing stuff that's not America first. But, she took it to a level and he followed her. And I think those are mistakes. This is stupid. Okay, here's a big one. Here's a real big one, right? Okay. This is a big one. All right. This is not a video. This is the, I guess, 5 biggest sanctuary states and cities, right? How come the Republicans and even Trump, once he got in office, didn't challenge whether declaring yourself a sanctuary state and city was constitutional to begin with? How come they didn't do that? Don't they have rogue judges on the right, just like they have them on the left? And on the left, and every fucking thing he puts out there, they try to challenge, and with nationwide injunctions, overstepped in their boundaries. But if I was a Republican conservative on my P's and Q's, when Chicago, California, Massachusetts, Colorado, and New York City declares themselves sanctuary cities and states, I could have probably found a judge saying, wait a minute, no, you can't do that, because now you're in open rebellion to the federal government, right? Your policies that you're going to enact that says that you're going to ignore the federal government's policies and laws makes you in opposition to the federal government. Is close to sedition, by the way, if you ask me. We need the courts to adjudicate this, and in the meantime, you got to cease and desist. How come they didn't do that? I mean, how come they didn't do that? They could still do it now, because we're seeing all the consternation in these cities and down in the blue cities, and all these states and the blue cities. They're in open rebellion to legal law. The ICE officials were legally put in there by the legislative branch, right? Those are they're officially doing their jobs, getting illegals out of here, and the blue states are in open rebellion against the federal government. And if you look up what sedition stands for and what it says, they're all being seditious. And nobody is taking them to task on this the way they should. The very first person who blocked a car should have either been ran over or put in jail. That's what I'm thinking. All this bullshit about trying to placate everybody on that. No, you get in front of a car, I'm knocking your ass out, and I'm putting you in handcuffs, and I'm putting you in the big bus. You know, because that's not no longer protesting, it's obstruction of justice. You know, if you have a detainer for a real murderer, and your sanctuary city says that we're not going to let the local police, you know, honor the detainer, that's open rebellion. It is. And they're really very ineffective doing anything about that. And I think that should be in the courts. This should be, whether they could be sanctuary cities or not, should be in the Supreme Court right now. You know? So that's what I'm saying. So there's another big ass mistake. All these people should be under investigation for sedition. All of them. Wu spent all the money in Boston. They can't even find enough money to give defendants, what you call those guys, the public defenders. They're just letting people out of jail because they don't have no money for public defenders. How can that be? Because they spent it all on illegal aliens. Same thing in Chicago. Chicago, they spent all their money on illegal aliens. All of it. That should go to the poorest of these. And everybody in these poor neighborhoods are getting a property tax increase because they got like 5 or 6 different boards in Chicago that can raise your property taxes. It's not just one. So this one gets 2%. This one gets an increase of another 2%. They got like 4 or 5 boards that could all at the same time increase your property taxes. So the combination of your increase could be as much as 15, 20%. I mean, they're just grifting and destroying the American people for illegals. Well, that's one of the reasons. They're doing it for other reasons, but that's one of them. So you see what I'm saying? We're in deep kimchi with this shit, man. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, don't stand in front of a car, man. So anyway, so like I said, I'm getting to the good part, right? I really want to get past the bad part. But there's so many things that I don't like what they're doing. And that's why when people think, oh, you're just a zealot for Trump, blah, 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 it's not true. It's not true. It's absolutely not true. Okay. Here's the last one. And I might get, hey, BMU, I'm going to say it the right way, so I don't want to get you in trouble. But, Trump's unwavering support to Israel is an issue. It's an issue. And it's an issue from the standpoint that, from the standpoint that the world understands their lying eyes when they see a genocide, when they see one. Yeah, does Israel have a right to defend itself for an attack that took place in October of a couple of years ago? Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. But how many dead bodies atones for those deaths? And nobody's asking how the most diligent, vigilant country in the whole wide world was left with their butt wide open to some hut running people with no shoes and antiquated weapons, that they can get that off. I mean, it's got to be an investigation to why those people, and I don't want to use the word sacrificed, but the way this shit is turning out, man, somebody needs to investigate how that happened in the first place. We had an investigation for 9/11. What went wrong? Oh, the CIA can't talk to the FBI and share information. How stupid was that? Is that any more stupid than the federal government ICE agents can't get information from local law enforcement? We could be letting the worst terrorists slip through our fingers because the sanctuary city governors and mayors don't allow their police force to organize and talk to ICE. We haven't learned shit. You know, so, I mean, we got a lot of bad shit going on. So it ain't all good, you know? And then here's the worst thing that Trump did. And I'm going to play this for you. It depends on who's saying it. I'm saying it's the worst thing, but it's not the worst thing, but it's another dumb thing. Here it goes. Just bear with me. I'm going to share this. I'm going to share this with you. No. I am going to share this with you. If I could find it now. Yeah, that's it. Hold on. All right, here we go.
Presidency made up of days full of so many headlines. On this day, there was just one. It came after the arrival of Israel's prime minister to a White House decked out, and a West Wing greeting between two men whose personal relationship has been on, off, and back on again. They went inside for private talks, and then came the news conference and this.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area.
The reaction from the gathered audience reflected the enormity of what he'd just said.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too.
He had just announced the takeover of Gaza, owning it, occupying it. It wasn't clear, and it certainly wasn't expected.
You are talking tonight about the United States taking over a sovereign territory. What authority would allow you to do that? Are you talking about a permanent occupation there? Redevelopment?
I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent.
It's not clear who he had spoken to, but even Sky sources close to the top of the Israeli government did not know about the idea. And despite trails of other plans for Gaza, this one came from nowhere.
And I don't want to be cute. I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad.
There you go. The Riviera of the Middle East. Okay, now everybody kind of realizes that even before he said that, with half of their population decimated, we all know that he's not talking about doing anything to restore the Palestinians to those so-called luxury dream houses he's talking about. You know what I'm saying? So he wants to make the Riviera of the Middle East, whatever out there. I call it genocidal gentrification. Kill all the people you can kill to get the enemies out of the way and revitalize the place and put the people you want in there. Right? That's what a lot of people are hearing, because we know the killing has been done. The devastation and way beyond a repayment for what happened in October of a couple of years ago. Way beyond. Okay? An overkill, if you will. And now we want to rebuild with luxury, this and that, with people, of course, out there who can't rub two nickels together. So who's he talking about?
This could be so magnificent.
Perhaps tellingly, Netanyahu did not pass particular judgment on the idea, but it certainly will help him with his own hardliners who he needs if he's to hold on as prime minister.
Absolutely. Netanyahu's not a fool. He's not going to say anything about that. He's going to say, holy shit. You know what I'm saying? Oh man, Anyway, so there you have it. My list of some of the things I think are the bad and the ugly from the administration. You know, so I wanted to spend fair time on that, so nobody could say that after, if you look at this replay, which I hope you will, and put your comments in there, that I just wanted to soft shoe the presidency. No, I didn't, and no, I don't. Right? Because when I sit back and I'm in front of my favorite liberals and they're giving me all this shit about how bad of a guy Trump is, and not about policy, but just because they hate him because of the Central Park Five, and he didn't let a black man rent an apartment 40 years ago. Okay. All right. So then I said, well, what about the policies? What about what he said on a campaign trail that he said he was going to do? What about that? I mean, did any of that shit resonate with you based on how we were living the weekend at Bernie's for 4 years? Kamala Harris cackling all over the goddamn place, saying much or nothing, the so-called border czar, with the worst border incursions in the history of the United States. All right, so let's take the good. The very first thing at the top of the damn list, he closed the borders. He closed the borders out of just sheer will. Hey, I'm the president. I want to close the borders. And within a month, the borders were closed as best they could. And they're getting close, and they're tighter and tighter all the time. That's great. I don't give a shit whether you like the president or not. The liberals would want to destroy the country. Okay, they got this mindset that we should be the ashtray to the world, that we have endless dollars and we should just be puppy dog lovers, and we shouldn't have anything sovereign to ourselves as Americans. This is crazy shit. Right? So he closed the borders. And it's even hard pressed for CNN, MSNBC, and all the haters to come out and say, oh, it's a bad thing. They don't want to give them no credit for it. But it was one of the greatest and quickest and smartest moves that a man could ever make. Right? We got to stop the bleeding. We got to stop the bleeding. Right? So the deportations now is actually cleansing the wound. And the reason why that's not going smooth in the blue states is because of the sanctuary city bullshit, and the fact that the Republicans are so dog shit stupid, they haven't challenged that in court to get rid of that. They could lose the case, but at least challenge it. And why am I smarter than these fucking guys? All right. So here's another thing that he's doing, and I appreciate it. He's closing the pipeline as best he can from our taxpayers' dollars going directly to illegal aliens. I don't think American taxpayers should be paying anything to illegal aliens. None. Zero. Zip. Zilch. Nada. We got cities going bankrupt because they're spending their money housing, feeding, taking care of the health of people who should not be in this country. It's unsustainable, right? There's a reason why the immigration pipeline is so narrow. Some of you guys know it, some of you guys don't. There's millions of people who apply for a green card, and it's not by accident that only a fraction of those people actually get accepted every year. And it's not by accident that it takes a long time to get naturalized, because you're coming from an old culture. Some of people, if you're not coming from the West, you got to learn English. You got to establish residency. You got to get a job. You got to stay clean. And you have to find a way to assimilate your allegiance to the United States. That shit doesn't happen overnight. Right? So that pipeline is naturally narrow. Could it run more efficiently? Yes, there's no doubt about that. But when people bypass the ports of entry, they muddy the waters. Okay? and not only money, they pollute the waters, and they disrupt the infrastructure of the United States. And I'm not even talking about criminals. I'm just talking about the glut of people. You don't have to be a criminal. If you're here illegally, then you're a negative to the United States Treasury, because we got to take care of you. Got to take care of you. You know, so if I got to take, if you're a legal person transitioning, and somehow you need a little bit of buffer, a year or two to get on your feet in this country, if you come from a really war-torn country and not bringing your own resources, but you're here legally, I mean, I could dig that, right? We're kind of a generous people, right? But when you do it illegally, you are an enemy of the state. Really. You could be a nice person, but you're an enemy of the state. All right, so that's my opinion. All right, so he's trying to stop all of that, us paying money for sex change. That's another part, but that's another thing. But illegal aliens getting us stuff they want to do. Well, that blends into my next one. It was executive order recognizing that there's only two sexes. I really don't care who gets mad at this one. You know, God said there's two sexes, right? If you believe in God, if you believe in the natural order of things, there's only two sexes. Now, if on your own, you want to decide to make one up, yeah, but the rest of us shouldn't have to pay for that. The rest of us shouldn't have to pay for that. We shouldn't have to buy into none of this bullshit, right? So on a federal level, there's two sexes. You want a passport? You're either a male or a female. You're either a man or a woman. I'm fine with that. So that's another thing. Okay, here's the next one. He's ending child mutilation, the gender affirming care bullshit, the child mutilation of children. What kind of future will we have if we allow children to decide to cut their genitals off, to stunt their hormonal growth? Because one day they woke up and they were a girl with a G.I. Joe doll, or a boy who, hey, man, he liked lipstick. At 3 or 4 or 5 years old, all of a sudden now, you know what? We need to give you shots, right? These are the same kids where you need to have a written note for them to go on a school trip, but they can go change their sex without your permission as a parent. So it's some absurdity like that. The demons, man, demons have infiltrated the legislator at the local levels. And of course, greed has infiltrated the medical community for actually saying, to hell with the Hippocratic Oath, they could suck my ass. We're going to mutilate and destroy as many children as we possibly can because there's millions of dollars in it. Billions of dollars in it. You know what I'm saying? So that was a good thing, fighting that. Now, it went to Congress. The Congress passed a law. Well, they passed the bill, and it's in the Senate. There's no way the Senate, I'd be really surprised if the liberal freaks on the Senate will actually give them 60 votes in the Senate so we can go up to the president so he could sign into law that you cannot mutilate children anymore in the United States. Now, what the Senate will have to do is break the filibuster to make that happen. They would have to break the filibuster to make that happen. And I hope they do. I really hope they do. I'm praying that they do. Because if there's nothing else worth doing, this one is. This one is. We got to protect the children. They can't protect themselves. We can't let the freaks decide that they could destroy generations of kids, who might have some questions about their sexuality. It's crazy. Absolute madness. All right. Restoring Title IX. These are all good things. Restoring Title IX for biological women. I mean, real women. I'm a baby boomer. I've seen it all. I remember how hard women fought for Title IX. Not chicks with dicks. I'm talking about women who fought for Title IX. And because Title IX passed, it says if you're going to have sports and scholarships and all that stuff for men, you got to have equivalency for women. And all the female leaders of today, one way, shape, form, or fashion, owe it all to Title IX. All the scholarships, all to Title IX. And so Biden and his freaks came in and they wanted to change it so a chick with a Johnson could also be called a woman. Dangling his pecker in front of women in their locker rooms, taking showers with them with his balls out, all of that stuff. So there was no safe places for women anymore. Putting them in boxing rings, in basketball courts, in volleyball courts, breaking faces, everything. And, you know, and all you stupid women out there, liberal fucking women out there, sat back and let Bruce Jenner become Woman of the Year. He didn't bleed once for it. How do you justify that? And then you have to have men and Riley Gaines come and try to stop the madness. So it's just the idiocracy had to stop. And even if it's only for 3 years, you know, maybe we could turn the tide back enough. And then you'll hear these assholes say, well, there's only 1% of them who have this gender dysphoria that, you know, how there's thousands of real young girls who've lost scholarships already. They've lost championships. They've lost positions on teams. They've lost scholarships to colleges. They lost all of that because the blue states have these policies that a man could be a woman and play in female sports. So stop the bullshit. It's a destructive kind of thing that was permeating our country. And even stinking ass UK, you know, kind of put a kibosh on that, even though they're putting people in jail for free speech. All right. And as black people, one of the things that you people like, a lot of black people on the left, they really hate Trump. He's the racist, like the white liberals aren't racist. But the bigotry of low expectations. Liberal Democrats, mostly white, pet black people on the back of the head, placate them and say, if you don't vote for us, your world is going to be a living nightmare and you can't make it without us. You are so dog shit, stupid, weak, and dumb, and you need a handout, and you need welfare, you need all this shit, and if you don't vote for us, it's all going to go away, and you're going to have to make your way through life on your own merit. Holy shit. Wow. You know, you shouldn't want to do that. So they got this bigotry of low expectations that without them, we can't survive. And unfortunately, 92% of black women believe it because they get placated and all that kind of stuff. And too many black men still believe that bullshit. And I look around panels and I say, what do you mean? Because racism is not even our biggest issue anymore. It's the dark shadows that hide within our own skin. Right? You know, because how could any of us make it if racism is that bad? Right? And most black people I know, to tell you the truth, who went through corporate media, who've had any success whatsoever, and I'm going to say this, most black people, here's a secret, white people, if any of you are listening, most of us are much more comfortable in a room full of whites than you guys are in a room full of blacks. Because that's our world. We have to navigate that. I think it's a strength. And then it takes a whole apparatus of liberals to tell you it's not a strength. You got to fear the boogeyman because he's not going to give you the handout that we'll give you. Yeah, we don't need the handout. We just need to be able to move on our square. And you know what? To tell you the truth, you don't need the handout. If you're moving and legitimately trying to do things, you'll be surprised. I have had white people help me get through a job. It wasn't because I was black either. It's because they saw what I was doing. You know, as an engineer, nobody gave me any quarters. You know, I took the same test that every white person took. I didn't pass. They didn't give me the black pass. I had to pass every exam, every lab experiment, all that shit, just like every white person. I got lucky to find a few who wanted to be me on their team because we had to team up on some things. You know, and when I say lucky, a lot of them didn't want to do it because I was black. But I didn't use that. I had to keep digging. And there's always somebody who's willing to team up. You know, you found maybe it wasn't the best of the best because they try to isolate themselves, but that wasn't a racial thing. But the truth of the matter is you have to, when you achieve something, it's not because of DEI. Nobody wants a job and somebody else telling you got a job because you're black. You got this promotion because you're a woman. You got this promotion because you're a homosexual. But for black people, right, every time they see us, you see these assholes like Elon Musk, who I don't really dislike, but he's a racist, right? Him saying, you know, if I see a black pilot, or anybody, him, because some other white guy say that, maybe Charlie Kirk or whoever, I wonder if he had the same test as everybody else. That's their own bigotry. You know, but how do you feel about it? Because, hey, listen, I've flown with black pilots. I knew they had to go through some of the same tests that everybody else did. You know why? Because they want to get home too. They actually want to get home too. You know, so sometimes you got to leave the idiocy behind. But, you know, the fact is Trump strips that bullshit of bigotry of low expectation away and say, hey, here's the yardstick. Here's the goal. Here's what you could earn. Are you willing to go earn it? Because I'm not giving you shit. And that's fine with me. And that should be fine with more of you out there too. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Defunding the police and cashless bail. Here's another thing. He's using the power of the federal government to say, you know what, we're going to beef up the policing where we can, call in the National Guard where we can, because we can't have roaming kids and people around the street just being lawless. Because even though the blue states sanction all of that bullshit, de facto sanction it by defunding the police, you know, their policies of cashless bail is very destructive. It was an experiment, okay? It was an experiment to begin with. My sister's a cop. My sister she was a sergeant. She didn't suffer no fools. She still doesn't. When this was happening in New York, she says, this is one of the baddest ideas I've ever seen our legislators make. And I argue with her. I said, well, people can't afford the bill. They shouldn't be in. This is the Jay-Z thing about the guy who killed himself after being in jail for some minor thing for 3 years because they never got to his case. And then he ended his life. And now we're talking about cashless bail because the pipeline of getting these low-level crimes in front of a judge and a judiciary so they can get their day in court is actually unconstitutional. It's supposed because you all are supposed to have a speedy trial. Okay, so but here's the point. There's so much of that. The pipeline is too small to handle all of these things in a timely fashion. And then they prioritize the cases as well. So here's a solution. Here's a solution, right? Because we found out that the experiment of letting people go on misdemeanor or lower felonies and thinking on a buddy system that they're going to come back for adjudication is idiocy. They're not. And then it's a gateway. Letting criminals back on the street with no punishment is a gateway to more punishment. I mean, to more crime, to bigger crimes. That's why we see a guy who murdered somebody, but he was arrested 17 times, over 20 times, mugshots each time, and let back out on the street to terrorize the population. And if you're black, you're mostly terrorizing black people. And not that it would be good if he was terrorizing white people. So don't get me wrong. Terrorizing anybody. How about that? They should be locked up. All right, so here's the solution, okay? Here's a solution. We have hundreds of law schools in the United States, thousands maybe, I don't know. How about energizing the moot court system where the candidates who want to be lawyers and the teachers who would be lawyers already actually hold trials for lower level offenses? They do this shit on TV, right? Some of those things are actually judicially correct, right? So some of the lower level offenses, send that shit to the moot courts. If I'm a lawyer and I'm in my final year and I'm trying to get experience, why don't we have those lower level crimes be adjudicated in the moot court in the hundreds of law schools that we have around the country? Commission those people so they can get real credit for real things, and whatever they say is binding. We're not saying murder trials and stuff like that, but thieves and lower level crimes that should be adjudicated quickly so people ain't spending their life in jail over bullshit. Use the fucking college system, the university system, and the moot courts to do something real. Right? The infrastructure's there. It's right there, right in front of you. So that's how you can get that pipeline and open that shit up so we can get more people through quicker. Why should a dog shit stupid motherfucker like me think of that? How come they haven't? Where's our legislators so busy insider trading and collecting money and talking about how much they hate Trump? They ain't really thinking. Okay. Of course, Doge and eliminating USAID was a great idea. And fraud, we understand now that fraud is killing our country. It's killing our country. It's killing, it's sapping all the energy out because taxpayers are pretty much, all of us, we're pretty much at our hairy end. Right? I mean, we got to be at some exhaust level. My property taxes went up. And not just the property, I mean, everything, and I'm not complaining about it because things go up. But the truth of the matter is property taxes in and itself, I think should be unconstitutional as well. I think we should, as people, as a class action, find a way to get, whether it's legal for a state to have property taxes, that means you could never really own your property. They should be turned into something else. And this most definitely should be some hard freezes on property taxes for people who turn 50, or if you own your house for 20 years or whatever. You just got to sell more houses and stuff like that. You want to raise some for more revenue, do something more innovative. People should have closure on whether they own their legacy, their homes, or not. They should. I know some states are starting to explore getting rid of property taxes, but I think we should look at the courts to help out with that. And the Supreme Court we have right now might be the best court to get a case like this in front of. And it just bypassed the states altogether because I don't, you know what? Even though it's like the states and not the federal government, for somehow I think it's all impacted. Somehow it's connected. But even the state Supreme Court should be challenged one by one. Anyway, so there you go. What's next? Exposing the Democratic Party. Right? The Democratic Party is now exposed that they're no longer a party that believes in the American capitalist society, right? The Democratic Party now is a socialist party. From Bernie Sanders on down, even though he calls himself independent, socialism is a failed construct, and we all know it. There's nowhere where socialism succeeds. You know why? Because socialism requires stealing money from people who've earned it to fund all of these stupid ideas that these fucking people have, you know, about free this and free that. And the thing about people is when they hear the word free, instead of running from it because it's a lie, they run towards it. You know, and Mondani, he did a masterful job. He might even be the Antichrist because he hypnotized the whole town of everybody. And then the Democrats couldn't, the Republicans didn't even try. And the Democrats put a disgraced governor as his running against them. So, you know, so I mean, the wheels are going to fall off soon, but we can't let the cancer of socialism and communism spread. And we'll see the experiment in New York to see if it pans out or doesn't. Because I have a feeling that when he starts to confiscate property like he say he wants to do, and the people who live in those dwellings need to have repairs, and they got to call some state agency to come over and fix the boiler. Yeah, okay. I think if we have super rats now, when this guy is finished, the rats will be Godzilla size. Okay, so take that for what you for what it is. Socialism doesn't work. It doesn't work because it takes away it takes away the drive. It takes away the competitive spirit of people because they think they're going to get something for free. And a person who works hard is not going to want to share that with some lazy asshole who just expects to get something because they just exist. All right, so that's that. And then what else is there? I mean, I got a couple more things on my list, and then I want y'all to listen to one guy that I really like. But well, here's something I want to play first. All right, so where am I going? I'm going here. I got it. So bear with me. I'm working on something for you. Right. I got another clip. And I want to show it from the right position. Hold on. All right. So it's going to take me a second to get there. All right. This is good enough. So I'm going to share this and then we'll go from there. Okay. All right. It's my man. Okay.
On, which is all about race-based ideas, and it only makes things worse. Okay, so let's go to Byron Donalds because he has something to say about the Democrat Party, especially since they now have been hit with an 18% approval rating, the lowest in history. Take a listen.
Take a look at this from a Quinnipiac poll. Only 18% approve, 73% disapprove. What's your assessment of your colleagues across the aisle?
My assessment is that they're following crazy. Now, instead of being big D Democrats, now they want to be democratic socialists, which is basically communism. That's not going to work if you're trying to get the American people to put the reins of power in your hand. Now, I will also say, as a Republican, we have a lot of work to do around healthcare. It's not just about subsidies. Obamacare has to be completely overhauled top to bottom. Republicans, we have a responsibility to do that while also fixing the healthcare system more broadly, making sure that we're not subsidizing insurance companies. Let's put that money in the hands of the American people. Let them decide where their dollars go. Make sure they have more choices and more opportunity when it comes to healthcare. But if you listen to Democrats, they don't want more options for the American people. They want to move to single payer healthcare. That's the antithesis of choice and options. That's going to drive everybody into one governmental system. And please, somebody tell me the last time a one-size-fits-all governmental system worked for the American people.
Okay, so the point that the congressman was touching on there is that progressives have continued to gain more political power over the Democrat Party and understand what they represent here. They say they are anti-establishment. They're not, because they will use institutions to enforce their social change. which is essentially communism. Okay.
All right, we can stop it right there. And that's exactly right. That's exactly right, man. What's going on, man? Where you been, brother? What's happening?
Hey man, look, man, I want to tell all the brothers out there, take your ass to a doctor. Just go get a checkup, man. Go just make sure you alive and healthy and all that shit. Anyway, I mean, look, man, I'm just getting off work and I'm catching you. I'm finally catching you, R-Pain, when
You
I'm
know,
not at work.
I hear you. So your hours. Hey man, so you okay though? Man, you have to go into the details. You all right?
Hey, look, man, I'm above ground. God damn it, I'm above ground. I have a plan in place to keep me alive. That's all I need right now.
All right, that's cool. That's cool. But you're right though, man. We all do. You know, I know that. I know.
Word to mommy. Hey, all you brothers that's in your 30s that think you still superheroes, nigga, you not 18 no more. Take your ass to the doctor and get checked out, nigga. Get some blood work done.
I hear you. I hear you, man. All right, so man, what you got, man, on the top? I don't know how much you caught, man. You know, I was
so on the video that you just played. So on the video that you just played, you and I both, neither one of us have really been, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but neither one of us have really been Trump supporters. Like neither one of us are like, hey, Trump is the guy.
Right.
But we've been able to see Trump and acknowledge what the Democratic Party has been doing wrong for all of this time.
Exactly.
I think you and I both can admit that Trump been on some bullshit. It's some shit that he done did.
I spent the whole hour on it. I spent the whole hour on it.
Trump been on some bullshit. It's a lot of stuff that we don't agree with. I know that you and I both have been pressing the point that from this point forward, no matter who is the president, I don't give a fuck if y'all vote. If everybody black decides to vote Democrat, the next presidential election, I don't give a fuck. But you do understand at this point that y'all can't keep depending on these motherfuckers that got all these excuses why they can't get shit done.
Right. Exactly.
That is all me and R-Pain have been saying this whole time. Hey, look, if you vote Democrat or Republican, you do whatever is best for you. But these Democrats can no longer use the status quo excuses that they've used, like, oh, the cabinet is keeping us from accomplishing this, or the Senate is keeping us from accomplishing. Now, fuck all of that.
Hey, get your ass out there and do something.
Hey, fam, if he's been able to do all of this in the 1 year, because, hey, guess what? We got 3 more years of this shit. You telling me he did all of this in 1 year, and we've had a Democratic president who was asleep at the wheel and couldn't do a quarter of this in the 4 years he was here? Fuck y'all.
Yeah, exactly. Such bullshit, man. Just no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Hey, man,
I was listening to the clip that you were just playing, and it really felt like that was reiterating exactly what you and I have been saying since we started this a year ago. Before Trump was even fucking inaugurated into presidency.
Exactly. I mean, you know, I've been, like I said, I told people, man, my revelation is kind of recent, man. You know, I like to tell people I voted for Hillary Clinton. So, I mean, that wasn't like so far in the past, right? Because she ran against Trump. So I didn't vote for him the first time, you know? And so, I mean, I'm just seeing somehow, you know, I just like to tell young people, you shouldn't wait till your 60s to have revelations. Have them as early as possible. You know, don't wait till you old, man, you know, to find out that you've been listening to and doing shit that's anti what you need. But like I said, I had a couple more things I was going to talk about that I thought was good. And I could just talk about while you're up here. One is that the Democratic Party has a war on men, masculine men. You know, the liberal Democrat Party have a war on masculine men. And that's one of the things that I think that a lot of the women, especially black women, hate Trump for, because he's a man. He's actually a man that, for some reason, I don't know why our sisters have a disdain for men who will tell them, just shut the fuck up. You know, just shut up. And he doesn't give them any quarter, right? He doesn't care if they're black women or not, because he talks the same way to white women. And he says, listen, you know, you're out of line, and I'm gonna tell you what I think. You might not like it. And remember when he was at that conference with the black woman, came out real nasty? And he's sitting down in a crowd full of black people. And I guess they asked him, about Kamala Harris being black. He said, I didn't know she was black. When did she turn black? It was funny as hell. I mean, he holds his own about, and I know the sisters, they got a dichotomy going on. They want weak men to control, but they know they can't, there's no long lasting situation with weak men. So when they're around strong men, they don't know how to handle that. They don't know how to handle that because they'll be out of control, and they have a control problem. Our sisters have a control problem. So he's the kind of guy who represents a man that can't be controlled by a woman. They'll bang out one, but being in a long-term relationship with a man who doesn't want to be controlled is tough for all women, but I know it's for the sisters for sure, at least the modern ones, or the ones who come up on social media.
I'm starting to believe that's what they want.
In terms of, and I'm going to delve down into that, but I'm thinking that's one of the reasons why conservative men are not the most favorite men. I've seen, and this is white women, I've seen white women come on social media saying they're looking for a man, and they got all of these things that a conservative man will have, but they want him to be a liberal. And they say it out loud. As long as he's not conservative, I want all these things, but he can't be conservative. But all of those things.
Any woman that is willing to mix politics into her relationship is already setting herself behind the curve.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with that. That's for sure. So I'm just saying, I just think that the fact that the Democrats have an open issue for finding manly men means that they've subjugated themselves to feminism and all kinds of things as a party. And men who are on their square no longer see a benefit, not all men, but more and more men don't see a benefit being Democrats. Just like a lot of men are not in the church anymore because it seems like the preachers are only preaching to women or what they want to hear. A lot of men ain't going anymore.
I mean, it's exact that explains exactly why dating is what it is for modern people right now. You trying to mix politics and relationships and finances, like you trying to mix all of these things into one pot, and you're completely missing what makes a good partner for you because you worried about who the fuck they voted for.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Good luck. Yeah,
Good
man.
luck.
And so that was one of the last things I had on my list of things I thought the tariff issue. And I'm going to get into the tariff issue a little bit. I'm not an expert at tariffs, but one of the things that people who are against tariffs don't never come back with the answer of how do we fix our trade imbalance if we don't use tariffs. For years, all of our products are being tariffed to death when we export. And then when we import products, we don't have maybe no tariffs, no reciprocal tariffs, or none at all. So we have a trade deficit because of that. And so Trump says, I'm gonna fix the trade deficit. I'm gonna do it through tariffs. And so far it's working. And I'm gonna have a video coming up to say it's working. It's not only working, it's working well, except the Supreme Court could derail that because it's in the Supreme Court now. And people are saying they might lose the case. But right now, he's negotiating country by country on here's my products I export to you, here's yours that you export to us. If you have this many tariffs on us, we're going to have some reciprocal tariffs on you or some percentage. So, I think that's the way to go. And so far, the trade imbalance was we were getting our ass kicked and that the world was up here. And now it's getting kind of almost on balance. So that means trillions of dollars are coming to us that used to just completely flow out. Now it's almost even. And that's where he's trying to get it. A lot of people don't understand it because they say, well, taxes are coming on. Those are taxes. But the companies that are importing stuff are actually eating some of those tariffs so they can stay competitive. they're not really passing those additional costs on to the American people. Not 100% of the time, but they're eating some of it. And at some point, when there's a balance, there'll be a new equilibrium struck. So this next guy I have coming up kind of explains that a little bit better. But he also is saying he's going to go through a litany of things that went well this year for Donald Trump. Not all of them, but it's like we can stop and start the tape. So if you got a minute, we're going to go ahead and hit that because that's the last thing I have for this show. And I'm glad you came back up, man. I'm here every Monday though. So for your hours are generally after 7 almost every day or something like that.
Honestly, it's just been
moves around.
Look, man, the holiday season has been hard for those of us that have jobs, you know what I'm saying? Because apparently the internet will tell you that it's 80,000 black people a month that's losing their job. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's a diatribe. But no, but just I'm blessed enough to still have a fucking job, and sometimes my schedule just works the way it does. You know what I'm saying? It just works the way it does sometimes.
That's the way it is. That's the way it is. Man, that's why I'm glad I'm out of the market, man. I'm out of the market. Shoot. So I'm gonna play this guy, and we can stop and start it, so we can have a conversation on what we hear. So just bear with me. Let me start it up.
Donald Trump just went full Santa Claus and delivered a load of presents to the American people. Trump's end-of-year stats are so good and defy all expert predictions that even CNN is forced to acknowledge his success. GDP growth surged, inflation is down, over 2.5 million illegal aliens have either been deported or self-deported, and coincidentally, that just coincides with the largest drop in murders in American history. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel, but let's start with Trump's Christmas present to the Islamic terrorists in Nigeria who have been killing Christians.
To Fox News Alert, President Trump announcing the U.S. military has carried out strikes against ISIS terrorists in the northwest Nigerian region in response to the killing and kidnapping of Christians in the region.
And this comes amid fears of an ISIS resurgence following deadly attacks overseas.
Senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy joining us now from the nation's capital with the latest. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning. The Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, is saying his department is always ready and that ISIS found that out on Christmas. The commander-in-chief, President Trump's official word on this came via Truth Social in a post that says, "Tonight, at my direction as commander-in-chief, the United States launched a powerful and deadly strike against ISIS terrorist scum in northwest Nigeria, who have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians at levels not seen for many years and even centuries. I have previously warned these terrorists that if they did not stop the slaughtering of Christians, there would be hell to pay, and tonight there was."
Do you think that the symbolism of protecting Christians on Christmas factored into this timing?
Knowing President Trump, yes.
Donald Trump is a man of theater, of drama, of symbolism. But unlike the Democrats who only engage in performative theatrics, Donald Trump's theatrics are combined with actual substance. Islamic terrorists have been systematically killing Christians in Nigeria for a long time. And the Nigerian government asked the United States for assistance in dealing with this problem.
I just want to stop it right there. See, that was key, right? You know why most of these guys are not talking about this? It's because there's no way to argue it if the government itself of Nigeria says, come in and help us out. Right? How could CNN and all the Trump haters come out now and say, oh, why are we doing this? Well, a sovereign nation asked us to come in and help them with a problem. That's number one. And number two, and this is going to be lost, or maybe not lost on people, because they hate Trump. The Christians they were killing were black. Here's the biggest racist in the world saving black Christians in Africa. These are not white Christians he's talking about. They're Nigerians. And he ain't getting no credit for that because he tried to keep the Central Park 5 in jail. You know, so I'm just saying. I mean, listen, we got sometimes you got to separate what's really going on. They're not even talking about that attack no more because of Venezuela, but they stopped talking about it even before Venezuela. You know, I don't know how many casualties there were in Nigeria, but he actually saved some lives. Did you hear about that? What do you think about that?
My perception on this particular topic is kind of skewed.
Okay.
Because I actually set my ass in Afghanistan with the intents and purposes of ridding that area of ISIS.
All right.
So to now know that you bombing Africa for ISIS,
Oh, they're in there.
it brings up a lot of questions for me. Like, what the fuck was we even in the sandbox for in the first place?
Well, you know, ISIS was in a lot of spaces, though, right?
And I get it, and it kind of brings us back to what I was saying earlier about, like, from this point forward, there is no president that can make any excuses. Like, you telling me that this man that y'all hate so much,
Mm-hmm.
chased a group into Africa that we've been fighting since 2001.
Yeah, but
this is the same group we've been fighting since the early 2000s.
Exactly.
And we spent what, 20 years in Afghanistan to now be fighting them in Africa?
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. You know, all the ISIS groups that are known, I can bet you bottom dollar that our intelligence knows where they are. I could bet you bottom dollar. So they're not just bombing. So these guys are actively killing people in Nigeria because they want to try to overthrow the country, and the government in Nigeria is too weak to get rid of them. They're too, and I didn't know Nigeria was that weak, but they probably don't know who to trust and all that kind of stuff. There's so much corruption in those, and I have to say, like in our country, but African corruption seems like to take a life of its own because it seems like they can't get ahead. You know, and so he asked the president.
Shout out to Minnesota.
Huh?
Shout out to Minnesota.
Yeah, hey, I don't even want to. That's right. Shout out to Minnesota. We don't even have to go down that path. But let me go ahead and let this guy on. But that's a whole nother show. And there's a lot of other content creators who've done a good job with Somalia.
So Donald Trump gave them a Christmas present they will surely never forget. And it also sends a message to deter future terrorist attacks against Christians. And this is important for American national security because unlike Australia and Europe that are dealing with an unprecedented rise in Islamic terror, America is making it clear we are not allowing this violent ideology to fester anywhere in the globe and lead to the establishment of hotbeds of terrorism whose purpose is to eventually attack the United States homeland. This isn't us getting into another war, and it's certainly not us infringing on the sovereignty of Nigeria. They asked for our help. The United States military can be the most effective deterrent in the world if we're willing to use it. But now on to the news that is absolutely wonderful for America, but has liberals ripping their hair out. They thought Donald Trump's tariffs were going to send us into a recession, but here's CNN admitting that the experts were wrong and GDP growth has surged in America.
A new report shows the U.S. economy was much stronger than expected in the third quarter. GDP grew at the fastest rate in 2 years. Americans are also seeing some prices ease at the grocery store. The cost of eggs, milk, chicken, and tomatoes are all down, as you see here on the screen.
So just think, the whole world out there in the third quarter, the United Kingdom grew 0.1, the European Union grew 0.4, and Japan fell 0.6%, fell 0.6%. Donald Trump's economy grew, the United States of America, the biggest economy in the world, 4.3%. What that means is that Americans overall, all of us, are going to earn 4.3% more money. We're making a raise. It's a simple way to do it. We've got more jobs, lower energy costs, and lower interest rates coming. This is the golden age coming.
The Democrats were almost frothing at the mouth for a recession, hoping that massive pain.
Before it goes on, one of the things that I do on my channel every so often, I post like meals that I do Sunday dinners for the family. And what I do is when I get the ingredients, I put them all out and I say how much they cost. Like this week I did the Christmas dinner. That was expensive, but we still nibbling off that shit. I think we just almost finished the last of it today. So I made peas. My wife likes split pea soup. I never really liked it. So I said, I'm gonna make it for her. I got all the ingredients and all that shit put together, seasoned it. It was pretty good. It cost me $56 to do that, right? And it's enough for like the whole week, and more, right? It's like 4 or 5 meals you can make out of it. And I said, the economy might be bad, but if you're judicious on how you spend it, and if you look at meals for a period of time and not just meal by meal by meal, you can do some economies, right? Because there's 3 of us in the house, so that meal was $56. So if it was just once, right, you divide that by 3, we get 2 meals out of it, or 3 or 4 meals out of it. Now that meal, that whole dinner was less than maybe $5 a piece. Because we don't throw away leftovers. We finish them off. You know what I'm saying? We finish them off. Then we add some new meals to it, but we finish them off. So I'm just saying, I think a lot of the clamor that it costs too much for groceries is on how people shop and what they buy. Not to say they haven't gone up, but I think a lot of it is overblown.
I'm gonna be honest and say that I go back and forth on this particular thing here, right?
Okay.
Because in listening to what he was saying, the one thing that I'm challenging right now is energy costs going down.
They are going down.
I don't see that reflecting on the bills that I pay.
Oh,
I don't see it.
Electricity bill, right? Do you use oil heat or electricity?
No, I don't. No. Just same as everybody else. There's an electric company that you got to pay once a month for your light bill. You know what I'm saying? I don't have gas in my house. I live in an apartment complex. I don't have gas. I don't have oil. None of that.
Right.
So
But
the cost of water.
You haven't seen anything at the pump?
Okay. My perception about the gas pump has changed based on me moving from Virginia to Texas. Right?
Okay.
Because living in Virginia,
Right.
gas is well over $3 in Virginia. To the last that I looked at it, gas is well over $3.
Where's it at now? Where you at?
In Texas, where I'm at, I pay $2.50. I pay $2.50 a gallon to fill my car up today.
That's pretty damn good, man.
And I understand that, but we're talking about regionally, because Texas is always cheaper than Virginia because Texas has its own oil refinery.
Man, William. But let me ask you. I bet you if you check Virginia, I bet you it's cheaper now. Might not be under $3.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, no. I'm pretty sure it's cheaper. Yes, but okay. So here's the thing, right? So I'm a paycheck to paycheck type of liver.
Okay.
I am like most Americans. I live paycheck to paycheck, big dog. And when it comes to how much it costs me per month for rent, it's kind of crazy right now. When it comes to how much I pay in water and lights, it's kind of crazy right now. Gas, sure, it's decent because I moved from one place to another. The cost of eggs is decent, yes, but it doesn't change.
Okay.
Like the price of an oil change has gone up.
Okay, yeah, I hear you. But let me say this to what you're saying, because I don't disagree with anything you're saying. When they say energy prices, different facets of energy. But and so I think we connect some dots, right? Electricity prices have spiked for some reason, but it's not just the oil. But cheaper energy, right? This cheapens the cost of production. And before that gets over to the consumer, there's a lagging indicator. It takes some time for that to leak in, right? And so I'm not saying your light bill is going to go down, but here in New Jersey, we had an issue with electricity as well. And I'm not so sure it was because of the gas prices. It was for something else went wrong with the grid or what the infrastructure. Yeah. See, okay, yeah, okay. So either man is saying that electricity is managed by states and not the federal government. And so there might be some issues there. But again, they have plants and stuff like that. If they use any oil, if that oil is cheaper, then their cost of production should be less as well. How much of that they
So
turn?
then when you're on a video and you're making a broad claim
Right.
as energy has gone down, well, what do you mean when you say that? Because
Yeah.
if the price of these things are regulated by the state, what are you saying for real?
Well, okay. Again, well, a lot of it to get into the details is more than the sound bites they usually have on these kind of broadcasts. The fact that energy, well, listen, I invest in an oil ETF, and it's going down because the price of oil is going down, and the dividend that it pays out is a little less. It's still a good investment if you get it in the right spot. So the price of oil, I use oil heat, right, in my house in New Jersey. The price, my plan had a rider in there that if you lock in the plan and if the prices drop below that plan, you get credit for that. So I've seen some of that happen because oil prices. Now I don't know how cheap the oil prices, but here's the thing with the Venezuela thing. If we have a friendly government in Venezuela and we rebuild their oil refineries, we could see oil down to like $1.50 at some point. You know what I'm saying? Hey, what's up? We got another guest coming. Hold on for a second. Either man, let me get you in here. You know, so I'm just saying, I hear what you're saying because I'm not saying you're wrong. What's up, Either man? I can't ask. Were you in the car or something?
Yeah, can you see me or you can't see me?
Yeah, I see you a little bit. What's happening?
I'm just looking and I just came up here to say I'm so proud of my president, Donald Trump. He out here making it happen. Listen, I'm telling you, bro. Listen, this is what we gotta talk about. I remember a time when we was talking about eggs was $10 a carton.
Yeah.
I don't know. See, a lot of people got amnesia because it's football season and they're watching the boys run across the field that they done forgot. I remember a time. I just remember a time when I walked out into the state of Washington and my gas was $4. $4 in the state of Washington. And the funny part about it, I'm driving by. I want to make sure our paying. I want you to make sure you get me in real time past the gas station right now. $3.15. That's 85 cents a gallon. Same gas station. And then I heard the young man, shout out to the young man. He was like, well, my rent going up. That's your landlord. Your landlord decided to raise your rent. And even if, let's talk about, we want to talk about real estate. People was paying under Biden 7% interest, 8% interest. I just signed a home loan for a person and it was 5.25. Two people don't understand. 2 points
That's big.
in a 12-month time period is unheard of, right? Then not only he said he was gonna lower all the prices, he said he was gonna go ahead and pull his Wild Wild West. He went on pulled up on Venezuela president.
So cool. I'm sorry to cut you off. I don't want to do this to you, but I think that you're at a great point. Because I think that what you're saying, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I think everything that you just said is completely valid. However, what I want to ask you is how much of what you're saying applies to the community of people that look like you and me? Because in terms of being homeowners, like how many black people actually own the home that they live in? Like I know you said it's the landlord. I get it. I understand that. I hear what you're saying. I'm just saying. How many black people do you know that's really not paying a landlord and paying a bank rather than a landlord? Like I'm saying, like some of the benefits that is happening with this presidency doesn't hit the majority of our community is all that I want to acknowledge.
Yeah, so first of all, I just left my best friend is about to close on the duplex. He closed on Thursday. He's out of town doing business. So he asked me, could I do his walkthrough? So all of my friends, we understood, like we wasn't anti-Donald Trump. We said Donald Trump is coming. How about let's make some money? Like we was like, let's go out here and make some money. So you said how many people I know? All the people I know got houses, right? Like that's the first thing. But I get what you said. You saying that the majority of the people don't have houses. I think it's last time I checked, it's like 60% of the whole United States population are renters, right? I think it's like 60 to 40, right? So you are right about those things, but I know one thing that's a fact. Now I know you might DoorDash, I know you might do Instacart, but you know the one thing my wife told me when she go grocery shopping, she said, "Hey babe, I got a little bit of money left over," and we do budgets in my house. So I can literally pull up my budget from 2024 and my budget. I'm like, hey, I saw the groceries we was getting in 2024 and the groceries we get now. Like she's coming back with a little extra stuff now. So I'm just telling you that I get your point, but overall, and we didn't even start talking about taxes. Have y'all seen the new standard deductions that's coming out this year? We about to see people, especially single people, get the largest refund that they have ever seen in the next 4 to 5 months. So that's a whole nother conversation. And people don't understand why the standard deduction was so crucial, right? So the standard deduction was a good crucial to raise it, because if I raise the standard deduction, now I don't have to have a whole bunch of people going through the auditing, because it's a general theme across all systems. So now we're about to see people get more money back. We see that, yes, if you renting, people don't understand. I own rental units. I can wake up one day and say, hey, kick these people out because it's the end of their lease and just raise my rent. There's nothing stopping me. It's such an individual level when it comes down to rent individual. And then, but yeah, that's the biggest key that I'm saying is that everything, and I'm gonna land it here, everything that this man is saying he's doing, it's some things that haven't came to pass yet, but he's doing exactly what he's saying he's doing. And we can't point back at a Democrat that done did that.
No, hey, man, but here's my thing I want you to do, because I mean, you're knowledgeable about business and stuff like that. So you got 100 Watt up here. What do you say to a man who is a renter, who lives like most of us live check to check, and who might be looking the best way to take advantage of what Trump is doing now? What would you say to them?
Yeah, so I'm gonna tell you, just like I just told my friend that's getting ready to close. I told him this. I told him this 365 days ago. We had this last January. I said, hey, little nigga, this how I talk to my friends. So I ain't talking to you, I'm talking to my friends. So I hope you don't take this personal. I said, hey, little nigga, you need to get out your goddamn pride and you need to get you a roommate. Like, and listen, a year from after I gave him his advice, he's closing on a duplex. I was like, get you a roommate. I told him, move in the house with 3 dudes. Like this idea, we know the rent high. We know that you want to jump up and down on women. We know you want your privacy. But I told him this a year ago. I said, hey, bro, you need to either move somebody into that apartment. You know where you got that studio at in your apartment? Move somebody in there so they can help you pay that rent. And I told him, I said, hey, and the second thing I told him is, you working one job is not good enough. I know that you got your profession, but you need to go down to the local Amazon, and at nighttime, you know what I want you to do? I want you to start driving that forklift. You ain't that prideful that you can't work 2 jobs. And so guess what he did? He lowered his overall costs. That was the first thing he did. The second thing he did is he went to go work a second job for 8 months. And then guess what happened, Arpain? Now that we know the prices of real estate went down because people can't afford it. He's getting a duplex $100,000 less than asking price because he got the money for the down payment. So I'm telling, this is the best thing I tell young brothers. Get out your pride. Get out your ego. I'm telling you, get out of that and find your ways. How can I be in a different situation a year from today, January 5th, 2027? How can I be in a different position where I can leverage my income? Even if you don't buy nothing, say you stay there. Wouldn't it be cool if you go buy some REITs? REITs are a real estate managed in a stock portfolio that gives you 8% back on your money, and it's tax free because they use it as a deductible. I'm saying is you got to leverage yourself in your youth, because I can't give our Payne the same advice.
Well,
He got a family, so that's what I would say.
No, that's good. Well, that's good advice at any age. I mean, there's some of that stuff. I mean, I could do or anybody could do, but that's good. That's why I asked you the question.
RP, you can't go drive no work, no 2 jobs. I'm telling
no,
you, you passed that point.
I'm not saying, I didn't say everything. I'm not even gonna work one job. This is good enough right here, man.
Because I can agree with him, right? So I can agree with him, right? Like the way that my mindset works, if I wasn't taking care of kids and they mother, oh yeah, I definitely say fuck paying rent and just sleep in the back seat of my car for the next 6 to 8 months and just save that money. As long as I pay my car note and they don't tow this shit from out the parking lot, I'll sleep in the back seat of my car for the next 6 to 8 months. You know what I'm saying? That's
Now
no
I
fucking
know a
problem
little
to
bit
me.
more now. Hello, I know a little bit more. So I was in the situation where I got with my wife. My wife had kids. I sat down and said, hey, I need to take your paycheck. You're not going to get a paycheck for the next 12 months. I need you to work. I know this sounds crazy. Everybody thought, I remember I sat down with my wife. I said, but this was before. I said, I need to take your paycheck because we can't bring in a roommate, but I can't afford you to spend money for the next 12 months. But I need you to see the vision. This is the real conversation men need to be having with their women and their baby mama. Hey, check this out. I know you want to live an exotic lifestyle. I know you want to be a stay-at-home mom. You got to understand, my wife was literally in the medical field. And imagine me coming to her as a man like, hey, check this out. We going to have to invest this money. I can't allow you to spend this money for the next 12 months. Hey, check this out. You got to do your own nails. You got to put your own Mexi bond up there. I need you to have some skin in the game. This is why people say if I always take care of my wife, it's because it's her money too. We invested her money for the first 2 years, right? So that's the conversations that, especially like dudes that's trying to get it out the mud, put that woman to work. You know, I'm for that.
There you go. There you go. I hear you, man. I do. I really do. So I see you shaking your head 100. You got something to that? What's up?
I mean, hey, look, that's everything that he's saying right now. For men that is listening to this, it's so important when you pick your partner, because everything that he's saying right now goes into the vetting process. Because you're not gonna wait 10 years into the relationship when I finally decide to make a big play for this to come up. This is early in the beginning. Like, for example, my lady is downstairs right now on the computer. She works from home. She's downstairs right now working. And we have an understanding, like, hey, we had an understanding before she got this job. I need 8 to 12 months of solid work from you for me to be able to use that paycheck to pay for some of the stuff in the house, because this is my plan A, B, and C. This is what I plan on investing in over the next 3 months. This is what that's going to, like, we've had an entire fucking conversation. Like, exactly what he's talking about right now. That's because I picked the right person, because she was able to sit down and shut the fuck up and listen to me say, hey, I need the next 8 to 12 months of you grinding your ass off for me to be able to use that for what we're going to do as a collective. Because, hey, guess what? For the next 8 to 12 months, ain't no date night. There's no going to kick it, hanging out with your girlfriends, all that shit. That's just dead for the next 8 to 12 months. But I promise you, baby, if you give me the next 8 to 12 months, the next 20 years of your life is going to be so much easier if you just shut the fuck up and do what I'm asking you to do right now. So that vetting process for men, that vetting process is so important, because sometimes you do need to be able to tell her, hey, look. I need you to shut the fuck up. This money you got coming needs to go for the cause. Once we done investing in what we got going on, then we can worry about going on these trips and all that shit. And picking the right person makes the biggest fucking difference for that.
Yeah.
So I agree with him 100%.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, yeah, maybe
Donald Trump make it easy. That's how you had to finish it 100. And Donald Trump make this life easier. That's it.
That is so funny, man. I tell you what, man, so many brothers, man, I'm talking about when it comes to money, man, they'll throw every liberal Democrat out the window, man, to have a guy like Donald Trump in office. Because his first term wasn't that bad. I think he's a better president now, but his first term wasn't that bad. I made a lot of money.
Well, it's a lot of things. So you got to understand a lot of things they put at Donald Trump's feet that ain't got nothing to do with Donald Trump, right?
Absolutely.
So I was having this conversation, right? this nurse, and she just swore me up and down. She said the reason healthcare is going up because of Donald Trump, right? And I asked her a simple question. I said, "Do you think COVID had any effect on the medical field?" And when I asked this question, like, people don't understand, COVID put a strain on the medical system, right?
No doubt
And
about
and
it.
and
Because-
insurance companies paid out a lot of money through COVID. And you know anything about insurance, when they pay out a whole bunch of money, they want their money back. And so a lot of these premiums increase have absolutely nothing to do with Donald Trump. It's 100%, hey, they done paid their money out. It's just like when you get in the car accident, they give you the money up front and then they try to recoup it over time. So the reason we see that these medical insurance prices are going up because we had a strain on our system for almost 4 years.
Yep.
So that's the point that I tell people. There's a lot of things that we try, and I like what he did at Venezuela. And because we was having this conversation about Venezuela is criminal, and I've been asking people this question. Our pain. I said, when we went to go kill Osama bin Laden, was that criminal? And it's like, no, he deserved it. Oh, because it was Iraq, it was Obama. So since Obama did it, like we gotta understand, we have always moved in these directions of the best interests of the United States. And I want the president to have the best interests of the United States. People want to. And so you know what I've been hearing for the years? Hey, the cocaine on the street, the crack on the street. This is the thing that destroyed it's crazy when I hear black people argue this. The one thing that destroyed the black community, Donald Trump single-handedly said, I'm gonna make it where it can't come into our actual communities anymore. And then I see black people saying, nah, man, it's just a drug. He's just a drug dealer.
Yo, I did a live on my channel, right? And I mean, I do shit. I mean, I'm not no big YouTuber. This was it just yesterday or the day before yesterday? I got like almost 10,000 views on that. I just impromptu got on and started ranting about all of this shit that we're talking about right now. And I got to the drug part. I said, I can't believe it. I said, I'm a baby boomer. I lived through all the drug years, man, all the different drugs. And hear black people talk about, you know, this is bullshit, blowing those boats out. I said, well, you got to be out of your goddamn mind. I mean, we should want every drug dealer who's importing shit into our country gone. That's what we should do. They're our biggest enemy.
And then we don't talk about, people act like when they see these boats, the Coast Guard, they're like, yeah, let me just give up these tons of drugs. It's almost a year ago. It was an article of the Coast Guard got in a full-blown shootout with the Venezuelans, right? Like it was a big thing. Like I'm telling you, like this idea that you think these people just giving up the drugs since they got caught. No, of course we shooting you, we bombing you. You get a warning. Like I understand how the military work, and it's just, hey, check this out. We told you not to do it. We told you to give up the boat. You didn't do it. So guess what we gonna do? We gonna sink it. And then people say, well, we think it's about oil. See, and this is what I want to tell people is this, that it's not just drugs. It's not just oil. It's not that he was funding terrorism. We don't even want to talk about that part, right? It's not one thing. It's all of these things combined, right? And tell me the last time we seen American troops go on to foreign tours and we lost not one plane. We lost not one soldier, and the 80 people that was actually hit was people who was guarding the president. This was like that's what.
Before we go too far into that one, what I would like to say though is I covered the press conference that the president had. The one thing is his transparency. When people say it's just about the oil, you goddamn right. We don't want the Russians or the Chinese or anybody else in a southern hemisphere in charge of that oil reserve. We want a friendly government down there, period. You know, and that's part of national security. You know, so that's why all this noise that we're hearing is going to fall on deaf ears. But I got this brother up here. I don't know if you're going to laugh. That's on the screen. He's a young, I don't know if you ever heard of this guy, Brandon Lehman. If you ever get a chance, you got to check out his channel. This young guy, man, he's on fire. I want to play some more of him before we get out of here. If you got a minute.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
was inflicted upon the American people, because that would position them favorably going into the 2026 midterms. But now they're in an absolute panic that the data shows the exact opposite. Now they'll have nothing to run on in the midterms because the America First agenda that Donald Trump set is actually working. And just to be objective, the only thing that's increased in price that's frustrating American people is the cost of electricity due to the massive amount of AI data centers being built. But as interest rates continue to get cut and electricity production and capacity continues to be expanded, those prices will come tumbling down, just as we've seen with gas. And because electricity and gasoline are the main inputs in almost everything, overall prices will continue to come down. And as GDP growth keeps expanding and wages keep increasing, that gap between inflation and wage growth is the American people getting richer, things becoming more affordable. So not only did tariffs not stifle the economy like every expert predicted, but they also didn't increase prices like they thought. Inflation is in fact coming down.
Prices, they've been under control really all year, and they're ending the year at especially low levels. So the national average, $2.86 a gallon. That's down by 21 cents from a month ago. It's also the lowest level since April of 2021. Now, gas prices were pretty low a year ago too, but they're even lower right now. When you look across the country, there's 10 states where the average is below $2.50 a gallon, right? Including Louisiana, Texas, Wisconsin, Iowa, Colorado. Oklahoma has the cheapest gas price in the country at $2.29 a gallon. And this trend could continue at least for a bit. Gas Buddy is projecting that the national average on Christmas Day will be just $2.79 a gallon. That would take out the low from last year, which was previously the lowest since 2020. And Gas Buddy says this will save drivers about $500 million over what they spent last year.
Not each, collectively.
Not each, collectively. And so, look, this hopefully will help people kind of feel a little bit better about their wallets.
The reason this is happening is because despite Democrats facetiously saying that tariffs are a tax on the American people, that actually isn't the case. Both sides are kind of being intentionally misleading, so I'll break down the reality for you. The Republicans are saying the cost of the tariff is paid by the foreign country exporting the items. Democrats say that the tariff is paid by the American consumer at the grocery store. But the truth is somewhere in the middle, and it's actually closer to what the Republicans are saying. The tariff is paid by the importing American company. And Democrats, as a fear-mongering tactic, said that that entire cost would be passed on to the consumer. But the reality is the American market is extremely valuable, and no company wants to lose market share here. So the reality is most, if not all, of the tariff cost has been eaten by the foreign exporting company and the importing American company, and has not been passed along to consumers at all. And the reason is simple: the beauty of capitalism. The foreign exporting companies know that the importing company may go with another exporter who's willing to eat those costs. And so the exporting company says, hey, we'll eat half of the tariff cost. That way their prices don't become more expensive to the importing company and they can maintain their business. But the same problem occurs for the importing company. They don't want to be the one to pass off that remaining tariff cost to the customer, because they might just take their business to another company who doesn't pass on the costs. So what we're actually seeing is a situation that most Democrats should be applauding. They say the corporations, the ultra rich, they need to pay more in taxes. Well, that's exactly what this tariff policy is doing. But because it's a Donald Trump policy and it's working, the Democrats are once again choosing to oppose Trump and abandon their morals and principles and defend endless corporate profiteering. But now to the immigration side of things. The experts said that it would be disastrous to the American economy if we lose all of these illegal immigrants who...
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so he's explaining something. What he's explaining is that companies like Temu, right? Temu understood that they could not increase their prices to Walmart prices, because if they increase their prices to Walmart prices or Amazon, they lose market share. They cannot, like, because if I had a choice to choose Walmart or Temu, I'm choosing Walmart. So what they did is they said, hey, first of all, these companies was making ridiculous profits, right? So they had room to move. And so they said is, I gotta still, because the market is still Walmart. The market is still Amazon. I might can increase my price a little bit, but people still got to see enough value in my price that they're willing to be able to do it through us and not through Walmart. So we already have a ceiling. Like people don't understand when we talk about tariffs, it is a ceiling, and that's the American product. And people will always buy American first if they have the option. The only reason we buy China or these secondhand is because it's so much cheaper. So we did see an increase, but it was not an increase to where it's up to the American cost to do business here.
There you go. There you go. I mean, so this guy, man, I like this guy, man.
Contribute to the economy. But GDP growth has soared, even though migration is going to be negative in the United States for the first time in almost 60 years. Take a look.
There's still so much important work to do, my friends. We're barely a year into this administration, not even a year into the administration. But I'm so proud of the accomplishments of the president and the entire administration. In just a year, we ended Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's border crisis. December marks 7 months straight of zero releases at the southern border. More than 2.5 million illegal immigrants have left the United States, the first time in over 50 years that we have had negative net migration, and it's just the start. When you restore sanity at the border, it shows up everywhere else. Rent prices are dropping 4 months in a row, and more native-born Americans are working than ever before.
The reason this is so substantial and positive for the American people is a couple of reasons. Number one, and most important, mass importation of illegal third world slave labor drastically suppresses wages. The function built into capitalism that increases wages gets distorted, if not outright destroyed, when we import millions of people who will work for 50% of what an American worker will. Why would any employer hire an American for 2, 3, 4 times what it would cost for them to just hire an illegal? Why would McDonald's give any job opportunities to 15, 16, and 17-year-olds when they can just give them to third world slaves who will work for a quarter of the price? Number two, it decreases demand, which cools off inflation. We're seeing the worst year for home sales, which on its face might scare people, but what it actually means is there's not enough demand, which means sellers are going to have to lower prices. This is amazing for housing affordability. And then third, but equally as substantial, it has led to the largest single-year drop of murders in American history. Let's take a look at this report from Axios. In Donald Trump's first year, motor vehicle theft is down 23%, murders down 20%, robberies down 18%, burglaries down 15%, property crime down 12%, violent crime down 10%, theft down 9%, rapes down almost 9%, and aggravated assault down 7.5%.
Can you pause it right there?
Yeah, I was going to do that. Yeah, it's amazing, right?
Yeah, so and the reason that the crime is down is because people are working, right? You know, the people who do crimes, the ones who sit around ain't doing nothing. I'm just letting you know. So this guy, he showed me his food stamp letter, right? So food stamps sending out letters saying, hey, you are able-bodied. You no longer get food stamps. You know what I saw 2 days later? I saw this, I don't want to call him a crackhead, but he was on some drugs. He was in a nice suit. He said he was going to get a roofing job. I said, you a roofer? He said, yeah, man, that's my craft. I can be a roofer. Like, we see people who was just leeching off the government, literally going to get jobs. So now that he's at work for 8-9 hours, you know what he ain't doing? He ain't breaking into cars. He ain't robbing stores. Like, he's not doing these things because now he at work. Remember the protest? You remember why the protesters was so big? It's because people was laid off. If we was working at that time, if you ever look at protesters on during the weekday, you guess
Yeah.
what? Ain't nobody there because everybody at work. So that's just the mindset I want to tell you is that all of these things happening is because people are going back to work.
Yo, but before we go on though, man, I just don't want hubris to check in, man. If the liberals get the reins of power back, they're going to do everything to destroy the country when they get it. That's what I'm thinking. That's my biggest fear.
Violent crime down
Wonderful.
10%, theft down 9%, rapes down almost 9%, and aggravated assault down 7.5%. And the reason is because most crime is committed by a small number of people. And certainly not all 2.5 million illegal aliens who have been deported are murderers, but the ones who are murderers got the message that the Trump administration is coming for you. They are going to find you. And if they do, you might just end up in a maximum security prison in El Salvador. But another reason is the pressure Donald Trump has been applying on soft on crime blue states. Now that they are aware Donald Trump will send in the National Guard to enforce the laws, it incentivizes them to get their own house in order. That's why you're seeing lots of blue states and blue cities drop their soft on crime policies and actually start doing the job of protecting the public. And one of the ways that he's been doing this is by putting pressure on blue states who are illegally giving out commercial driver's licenses to illegal aliens who end up killing American people. And because of this, one of the biggest culprits, California, revoked 20,000 commercial driver's licenses. And now those angry, entitled illegal aliens are actually suing California and the Trump administration for this. Take a look.
November 6th, the California DMV notified 17,299 immigrant drivers and business owners that their non-domiciled CDLs, that's commercial driver's licenses, would be canceled on January 5th, 2026. That's just days from now due to an error with the expiration date of the licenses. A similar letter was sent to an additional 2,700 drivers in December, informing them that their licenses will be canceled in mid-February. For all nearly 20,000 immigrants, the DMV intends to cancel their commercial licenses without any affording opportunity to obtain a corrected license or to contest the cancellation, the lawsuit reads. But let's remember the deadly results of allowing illegal immigrants not only to cross the border and be released in the country, but then to give them work authorization and commercial driver's licenses to operate 18-ton trucks, 18-wheelers on our roads. Here's a list we can show you going all the way back to this summer in Florida. The illegal immigrant trucker killed 3, attempting to make that illegal U-turn and back in October.
When I was 11 years old and I visited China for the first time, I will never forget, I was walking with my grandmother and grandfather on the sidewalk of a busy Chinese street. And out of nowhere, a driver who was trying to avoid traffic just pulled onto the sidewalk and drove down the sidewalk to avoid traffic. And we had to step out of the way. Otherwise, we would have been hit. I shared this anecdote to demonstrate that drivers from other countries, especially third world countries, are not familiar or accustomed to serious driving laws that we have in America. And when you have states like California that allow these people to illegally operate 18-ton semi-trucks, it's inevitable that catastrophes will happen and American people are the ones who suffer. I'm going to be releasing a video in a couple of weeks giving Donald Trump's first term a report card, but let me just say, I'm satisfied. Is there work to do? Of course. Are there things I can criticize? Of course. And I'll touch on those in that video. But I want you guys to not get distracted by all of the noise. Don't get distracted by their diversion on the Jeffrey Epstein files. Donald Trump has only been in office for 11 months, and the results are still very impressive. And I think next year things will only get better, and the Democrat Party will be petrified because they'll have nothing to run on going into the midterms. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope you had a wonderful time with your family. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Turn on those notification bells so you never miss a video. And I will see you guys in the next one.
I like the way he ends this thing, man. My boy, that brother's cool, man. He is absolutely cool, man. Hey man, you the man, shut up. Well, anyway, hey, listen, man. I just wanted to, anybody out there, you still listening? Go play this on replay because I spent the hour talking about the things I didn't like about the Trump administration and about what's going on, the mistakes that I think they've made. But I couldn't articulate some of the good things any better than this young brother, Lehman did, Brandon Lehman. So this one is worth looking at again and again, and go and follow that guy's channel. I'm on Marriage, Politics, and Sports. I go live every so often. I do when I see any kind of presidential thing that I'm interested in, I do a live, and I do a live reaction to it. My last one was yesterday or something like that. A lot of people on there cursing me out, man. It was like at one point it's like almost 300 people listening to that damn thing. I'm saying, yeah, man. So what the hell, man? The baby boom, I tell them I'm your favorite baby boomer. There you go. Yo, man, so I'm glad to see you, man. Hopefully everything goes okay, man. I got a big appointment up in March coming up. I can't stand it. Yeah, I can't, and just like most men, nobody wants these fucking guys prodding and poding and shit on, it's funny. I'm in that room my last one was in a room for all these nurses and shit, whatever. The ladies are all practitioners, right? So yeah, and I'm saying, damn, man, at least I could be a little bit buff, right? So I had to do something where I had to hold my breath for like 2 minutes and said, listen, there ain't nothing I can't do for longer than 2 minutes. I said, I could do a little bit more than 2 minutes. They started laughing like a motherfucker, man. I said I could handle 2 minutes and shit. Anyway, but hey, man, I'm here every Monday, man. So if you're free, come back. And hopefully, man, keep us abreast, man. You can send me, you got my email, let me know what's happening if you want to. Prayers with you, brother. And anybody out there, hey, man, public service announcements for men. Yeah, man, get your shit checked out. I know you don't want nobody touching you if you ain't having sex. That's most of us. But sometimes you got to go to the doctor and, lay it all bare. Hey, let me tell you this one story.
That's the problem. That's the problem right there. You're so worried about pussy. Your sex not included. Hey fam, when you woke up this morning, you had a cough that you didn't have yesterday.
That's right.
That's your body telling you something. Hey, cuz your knees hurt every time you get your ass. Like, come on, fam, your body telling you something. It ain't got nothing to do with pussy. Your body telling you something. Stop ignoring it.
Hey, you know what? I make a joke. They have this cardiac catheter thing when they do a test to see how your heart and veins are working. The catheterization, right? They stick something in your groin or your arm, and then they throw a dye into you, right? But in order if they're gonna do it through the groin, they'll have you on a gurney, like the damn when they're killing somebody, you're like that gurney with your arm out and you're butt naked and shit, and you're out like this, and they shaving your pubes and shit so they can do the cat. And ain't nothing with women in there, right? And they're shaving this shit. I'm saying, God, your shame is out the window, okay? If you feel like everything is out the window, like this, then they start the procedure, and it's like a dye, but the dye has like a warming effect. So when it goes through your body, it starts like, I'm saying, oh shit, what the fuck? Because you feel it, right? Like, what? I said, oh my God. I said, man, after that, you shouldn't be ashamed of anything. And, and then you got to go back to your room and they want you to walk. And then you have to do the ass out perp walk because the shit never goes all the way around, right? So you got to walk from there. I tell you, it's an experience it's an experience you never want to forget, man. So, yeah, I try to stay out of the hospital. But you got to go sometime. Anyway, brother, hey, man, thanks for coming up. Everybody out there, thanks for joining in, and all you people who are listening in. Either man, some good information he did. Yeah, come back, Either man. All right, Black Man Unfiltered, man, thanks a lot. 100 watts. You know what? You know where you can find me, brother. All right, R. Payne, your favorite baby boomer, over and out.